Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light to guide my way.
So shall my word be, which goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, without accomplishing what I desire, and without succeeding in the matter for which I sent it. For you will go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth into shouts of joy before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Isaiah 55:11 and 12. Wow. Mountains shouting and trees clapping. What's going on here? Well, can you think of a more vivid picture of joy as a people receive pardon, verse 7, and are ushered into the ways of God far higher than the heavens above? The exuberance should make the heart pound with anticipation, and for the Israelites who first received it, they should open their eyes wide in hopes of witnessing it. How does this passage achieve this amazing power? The picture painted by these words is vivid and moving. Look closely and you'll find that the message is energized by the use of symbolism. Jeremiah addressed the evils of idolatry by saying, "And it came about because of the lightness of her harlotry that she polluted the land and committed adultery with stones and trees." Jeremiah 3:9. Adultery is the violation of a marriage covenant between a man and a woman. How does a human commit adultery with stones and trees? It's actually a reference to Israel violating their covenant with God by turning to false gods. The punishment for adultery under the old law was death, so the point becomes quite clear. God had Ezekiel use visual aids on a number of occasions. The Lord had him use a brick, an iron plate, various grains in a vessel, a sharp sword, but the most graphic illustration of all came in the death of his wife, Ezekiel 24. Jeremiah was told to make bonds and a yoke to symbolize the fate of Israel. God wanted his people to understand by no uncertain terms what lay ahead of them. God was doing all that could be done to help these people. The Lord spoke through Jeremiah, saying, "I spoke to you rising up early and speaking, but you did not hear, and I called you, but you did not answer." Jeremiah 7:13. With this attitude of making every possible impression, God inspired the prophets with a wonderful body of language filled with beautiful poetry. And it was poetry. We talked about this back in 2 videos several months ago. I'll put links right up here if you need them. Poetry by nature uses words to inject intense emotion and then frequently adds some very vivid symbolism that creates pictures. Isaiah spoke of the coming distress upon Jerusalem by the Assyrians. "From the Lord of hosts you will be punished with thunder and earthquake and loud noise, with whirlwind and a tempest and the flame of a consuming fire." Isaiah 29:6. God never expects anyone to be watching for a literal storm or fire. These are images of horror. This is the picture of events which are unstoppable by mankind and which will be historic in nature. The recipients were meant to feel the fulfillment before the fateful day arrived. So rather than look for the symbols themselves, we are intended to look for what fulfills the symbols. If a symbol was to actually appear in the fulfillment, then it never really was a symbol. Think about it. The symbol represents something other than what it is. If you expect to see the symbol in the fulfillment, then it never was a symbol. Isaiah 11, verses 4 and 5, have a rod coming from the Messiah's mouth, and the breath of his lips slay the wicked. Meanwhile, faithfulness and righteousness are a belt around his waist. That's a lot of symbolism to then turn around in verse 6 and say, we have a literal wolf, lamb, leopard, kid, calf, lion, fatling, and a little boy. We sure change our tune awfully fast. Flipping around like that is usually the result of a doctrinal need. And we'll talk about that a little more in our next video as we see more of the grand language used in prophecy. I hope you'll join me for that study.